So Claude Code is the most powerful AI coding tool in 2025, and I'm going to teach you how to use it all for free. And no, you don't need to be an experienced developer. This is for beginners, and I have myself coded for 300 plus hours in Claude Code and extensively read the Claude Code Bible, a guide written by Boris Cherny, the person who himself developed Claude Code. So step one is going to be creating the claude.md files. So what the claude.md files do are sort of something that I'm going to explain to you. So the claude.md file is the file that gets appended on top of every single prompt that you send to Claude Code. So as you can see, my claude.md file has specific development commands. It has the architecture, it has a key application structure, it has development notes, and you can put other development instructions in there too. Now you can find a lot of open source claude.md files online to see sort of how people are optimizing your workflow. But if you're a super beginner and you want the best way to get a claude.md file, honestly, I would suggest just opening up your code base and writing Claude Code in it and running Claude init. And what Claude init will do is initialize a claude.md file for you based on your repo. And yeah, it'll put the best context up there. Honestly, in my opinion, Claude init is the best way to do the claude.md file, unless there's, I don't know, unless there's something really superior out there, which I haven't come across. Next is going to be telling Claude Code which tools it is allowed to use and which it is not allowed to use. And this is something you can find in your .claude file in the root of your repo. There's going to be a file called settings.local.json. And in this, you can have all the permissions that you allow it and all of the permissions that you deny it. So what's the advantage of this, you may ask me? So the advantage with this is most of you might know that whenever you send a prompt into Claude Code, you might not know either. So when you send a prompt into Claude Code, it often asks you if you want it to continue and give it permission to run a specific tool. So what this file would do is that pop-up won't come. It'll just run and access the tool, and yeah. And if you've denied certain tools for sensitivity purposes, then it would stop and ask you, okay, do you want to let it run or not? So a really important file that can 10x your development speed when you. So next up, this is going to be mainly for beginners. If you don't have GitHub installed, you can just go in your terminal and all you have to do is undo install GH. And what this will do is install GitHub onto your local system. You can do this in the terminal of your repo via the IDE you're using, or wherever you have Claude Code locally initialized in the repo. Better yet, initialize this globally on your PC so you don't have to do this individually for every single repo. Next is going to be giving Claude Code more tools. So you can give Claude Code bash tools, but that's not as powerful. I'm going to talk about things that are really important. And one of the most powerful things with Claude Code is the MCPs. So what the MCPs are for a beginner, I'm going to explain this in a really good way. So let's go back to my repo real quick and see what I have initialized as my MCPs. So I have 5 MCP servers configured on Claude Code. So what MCP servers basically do is they're sort of tools that you give Claude Code to do different tasks. So let's say the context 7 MCP. This is specifically for documentation. Now, when you're using Claude Code, there's 2 ways to give documentation. The most mainstream way is, for example, I'll go to the React docs, I'll copy, and I'll paste the URL into Claude Code. But that's not going to be as efficient. Why, you may ask me? So when you give Claude Code these React docs, what it's going to do is go through all the docs and sort of store this documentation, and then it'll have to specifically search for specific methods or specific things in it, which is going to be very, very inefficient and time consuming. So what Context 7 enables us to do is that it has already downloaded most of these documentations on their own server DBs, and they index these documentations in vector databases. So what that means is when Claude Code wants to, for example, go on React documentation and search for, let's say, something like a specific method, what it does is it immediately brings all the context and instructions related to that method, and it gives them to Claude Code instantly, instead of on the traditional route, it would have indexed, or it would have gone through iteratively the whole documentation itself and then found that specific method. With Context 7, all it does is it searches for that specific method and context 7 immediately gives it back all the necessary context and documentation for that method. Next, we have the Playwright MCP, another important tool. So what Playwright does is it initializes headless browsers. So what Claude Code can, for example, do is, let's say I tell it I want to copy Reddit's UI. It can go on Reddit on a browser and see the different UI components, interact with them, and sort of help me build a clone of Reddit. Next, we have sequential thinking. This enables reasoning for Claude Code. There's already reasoning and thinking embedded into Claude Code, but this is another layer on top of that. Next, we have Supabase. Supabase is basically backend as a service, and they have a MCP server for Claude Code to interact with it. It can build DBs, edit DBs, and do a whole lot of stuff. But yeah, there's an infinite amount of MCP servers, I'll say, but these are the ones I use, and these are the most beneficial ones in my opinion. So next are using custom slash commands. So as you can see, Claude Code comes with pre-configured slash commands like memory or like model or like config or let's say compact. But then there is the option to create your own custom slash commands. So I'm currently using something called SuperClaude, and it comes with pre-configured custom slash commands. So as you can see, I have slash commands like SuperClaude Analyze, SuperClaude Build, SuperClaude Cleanup, and these are basically configured to do certain tasks. So you can build your own custom slash commands. Next are the common workflows. So the first workflow is plan, code, commit, and that is basically me describing a certain thing I want to code. For that, I'd give Claude Code images, I'll give it URLs, I'll give it documentation, and then Claude Code will think, come up with a plan. Of course, I'd put it into plan mode initially, and then when I accept the plan, it would go on to auto accept edits, and it would write out all the code, and then it would commit it to GitHub based on the fact that I've told that instruction to it in the claude.md file. Pro tip, by the way, you could just go on memory and add that to the user memory so that you don't need to do it for every single specific local repo, because Git committing after every task is pretty common. Next is the workflow that the Claude developers themselves say is their favorite, and that is the test, commit, code, iterate, commit workflow. So what this practically means is, first of all, you have Claude Code write out all the tests of the whatever app or feature you're building, and then write the code. So what this would do is, if Claude Code wrote the test initially, it would be less prone to errors when writing the code. Why? Because it knows exactly what it tested for in its tests, and it would consciously avoid those errors when writing the code, and then run those tests and iterate and improve again and again to the point where there's no bugs and you have a completely perfect working application all in a few prompts. And then of course the same thing, you commit. So next is going to be being specific with your prompts. And there are some examples that they have included in this article. We'll go through those specifically. So an example of a poor prompt would be add tests for foo.py. Now you can clearly see why this would be a poor prompt. It's just really, really vague, and it doesn't carry a lot of context and details of what you want the agent to do. I'm pretty sure Claude would still be able to do something with this, but as someone who wants to 10x their productivity in Claude Code, you really want to give it all the context surrounding a specific instruction and the most explanation you can for a specific prompt. So for this specific prompt, an improved version would be write a new test case for foo.py covering the edge cases where the user is logged out, avoid mocks. So you can clearly identify sort of what makes a good and what makes a bad prompt. This is something really, really self-explanatory. It's just adding more details and more context around your prompt. Like for me specifically, when I'm writing out prompts, number one thing I sort of try to do is have my intent really clear. So I'll have the beginning start with exactly what I want Claude Code to do, and then covering how I want it to do, and then covering what tools it might need to use to do it, and then showing it screenshots or documentation, etc. And then telling it sort of the bugs that it could encounter and how to avoid those. So you can sort of come up with your own sort of prompting skills, but this is sort of a way I write my prompts, and I structure them in this. Real quick, in this article, they also cover how to give Claude Code images. So for giving Claude Code images, you just you just press Command C on whatever image. You go into Claude Code and you press Control V, right? Before they only had Control V, but just as I'm recording this video a few hours back, their developers tweeted that now you can also use Command V to paste the images in. So it's just pretty normal, just like any other copy pasting. You can copy paste images into this. So now another thing is you can add any file and mention that specific file. So like, let's say I wanted to work on this specific file with Claude Code. Now, if I didn't specify this specific file, I would be wasting tokens and wasting time, and sort of really inefficient for me to let Claude Code look at the prompt and come up with which file I'm specifically talking about. Now, I could circumvent all of that by just referencing the specific file I want the fixes or the features to be added to by. So the next thing that we need to talk about is the /clear command. So we have two commands in Claude Code. One is the /clear. What basically /clear does is it resets the entire context window of that specific Claude session. So sometimes when you're coding, your context window becomes super bloated and you want to clear everything out, or you want to start another Claude session with the same context and clear that. The other one that we need to talk about is /compact. And what compact does is it compacts the context of the entire conversation into a summary, which in my opinion is pretty accurate the first few times, but after a few times that you compact, Claude just starts going absolutely crazy. So building on the /clear command, we're going to jump right into the multi-Claude workflows. So what they're talking about here is essentially what I mentioned, is having Claude Code open in two separate windows. So you can have one Claude Code where you're writing the code and other one for reviewing stuff. So let's say I have this one to review everything, and then I have this one to write all of my code. I'll write all of my code, I'll review here, and I could have a third window open that could also find bugs. So I could have different windows open for different things. And now that they have agents, this is even more useful because you could have different agents in different windows or in a split screen interface. And yeah, super, super cool. And you can use the clear command where you're using two agents in two windows. On the one window, you could have that one agent with the coding task, one with the review task. And yeah, great option that Claude Code has given us there. Last thing that I'm going to jump right back into is the headless mode for Claude Code. And this is basically, you can just go into your terminal and basically all you do is you just put in Claude -p, and this would initialize Claude Code in a headless mode. And you could also put on the -output format stream JSON for the output of the prompts that you give to be streamed back to you. Now, this is super useful either when you want to do it in the terminal directly to prompt Claude Code, or you could automate your stuff in GitHub and create issues and tell Claude Code to debug and create PRs and stuff like that. So that is it, guys, for this tutorial and walkthrough. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you want to see more videos like this, comment down below and let me know, and drop me a like and a follow. It will be highly appreciated. Thank you.